Surprise! A post-game show. One might even call it an emergency post-game show as the Syracuse University men's basketball team drops one to Colgate for the second straight year. That is the first time since John Fitzgerald Kennedy was president that Colgate has defeated Syracuse in consecutive years, first time since the early 1960s. Colgate 80, Syracuse 68, your final from the JMA Wireless Dome here on Tuesday night. Welcome, everybody. My name is Brent Axe. This is Syracuse Basketball Postgame, presented by Krause Health. We're live on the Syracuse Orange Basketball Facebook page. We're live on Syracuse Orange Sports on YouTube, and we're on Twitter as well. Your comments, welcome throughout the show. I'm sure you got a lot to get off your chest here, as Jason says, and it says pretty succinctly there, wow. Wow is right. Richard says a post-mortem show for Syracuse. And look, this happened last year, guys. Colgate came into the Carrier Dome. They hit 18 three-pointers, and they beat Syracuse 100-85. And what was an ominous sign of things to come in what ended up being a losing season for the Syracuse University basketball team, the first under Jim Boeheim. Tonight, Colgate came into the JMA Wireless Dome and hit 19 three-pointers. They topped last year's performance. Syracuse played the 2-3 zone. Syracuse played the 1-3-1 zone. Syracuse played any number combination you want in the zone. They played man-to-man. It did not matter. Syracuse could not get to Colgate shooters. Tucker Richardson, their leading scorer returning, one of their big veterans coming back, had 27 points. That's a career high. That's a school record for Colgate. Last year, their 18 threes was the second most given up. So Colgate has at the very least tied a record for the most three-pointers Syracuse has given up in a single game. And folks, it's not even Thanksgiving yet. As a lot of you are saying here, they're not ready. They're not good. Unbelievable. And as Jeff notes here, going to be a long and painful season. Again, Syracuse hoops has become irrelevant. Joe says they just hit two more threes during the postgame show. Look, shout out to Matt Langle and Colgate and the program that they have built there. This is a team that's been to the NCAA tournament 3 out of the last 4 years. Really talented players, as we saw tonight, once again on the floor at the JMA Wireless Dome. Colgate, kind of has the lease on the Patriot League right now. They're a good basketball team. But this is the team that you pay to come in and get a win. This is a team that prior to last year, you had not lost to since 1962. This is a team that, once in a great blue moon, if you will, would give Syracuse a little trouble and be like, hey, pesky little Colgate. 2 years in a row, Colgate has not only beat you, they've owned you. Okay, last year, Syracuse goes up 15-2, 17-2 actually. They had a 15-point lead, and then Colgate hits 11 three-pointers in the first half, wins the second half big, and they win 100-85. That's a convincing win over Syracuse. So you say, okay, that's Colgate, good for them. NCAA tournament team, it can hit threes, had a great plan, played smart basketball against a team, as we came to find out, was one of the worst defensive teams Syracuse has ever had by any measure, statistically, eyeball test or otherwise. And last year, it was the sign that this season maybe was not going to go the way that anybody really anticipated. Here we are again, even earlier this year. Syracuse played Colgate on November 20th last year. This is just the second game of the year. We're over a week away from Thanksgiving, and Syracuse basketball fans are wondering what in the world is going to happen here. As Pat points out here, Colgate actually lost to Buffalo earlier this year, 88-87. Look, this is a young Syracuse basketball team. We know this, okay? But you can't lose like this to Colgate 2 years in a row and proclaim yourself to be a high-level ACC program, right? You got owned by Colgate. Syracuse's defense, frankly, was pathetic. Zone, man-to-man, the Chicago Bears 46 defense, whatever defense you want to play, you got to rotate, you got to hustle, you can't leave Tucker Richardson wide open, or any shooters wide open for that matter. Colgate had an easy time in this game, and all they did all night was just move the basketball. There wasn't anything complicated about this. It's not like sometimes in football when you play an offense that, is too complicated. I remember when Georgia Tech used to run that triple option and, teams would just be confused and they'd be thinking and not playing. All Colgate did was move the basketball, find the open shooter, and hit the open three. And Syracuse could do nothing to stop it. It wasn't just the defense, by the way. Syracuse did not shoot well in this game at all. 24 of 62 in this game for the Orange. That's 38%, whereas Colgate was 28 of 59. That's 47% on the night. I just keep staring at it here. 19 of 38. That's 50% from three-point range. Colgate shot 50% from three-point range on 38 attempts. That's incredible to think about. Syracuse just 8 of 25 from three-point range. Colgate out-rebounded Syracuse 37-36. They did the same thing last year to the Orange, out-rebounding them. Colgate, here's your ball movement stat. 22 assists in this game. 22 of 28 field goals were assisted, and 19 of those were three-point shots. Syracuse countered with just 9 assists. So this team is not moving the ball. They're not moving on defense. They can't score. Their small forward position is a major liability at this point. They don't have one. And again, it's a young team, and some things had to come together for Syracuse, certainly over the course of time. But this is a big, big red flag for this team. And look, Colgate's a good team. Colgate's a great team. I mean, you just got to shout them out and give them credit for what they're doing here. But are they that good to come in and beat Syracuse 2 years in a row? I think this might be more of a Syracuse problem than a Colgate compliment, to be frank with you and be honest with you. And again, shout out to what Colgate's doing here. But this is just embarrassing for Syracuse to lose a pay game like this 2 years in a row. I'm just kind of glancing through the stats here for Syracuse. Let's look at some. We told you about Richardson, who had 27 for Colgate. You had 3 guys in doubles. Richardson had 7 3-pointers. That's a career high for him. Moffitt had 4 threes. Lynch put in 4 threes as well. You jump over to the Syracuse side of things. It was actually the freshman Judah Mintz, who had a great second half. Quick off the ball, get into the hoop, can score. He had 20 points on the night. He actually hit a couple of 3-pointers. Benny Williams had a great game for Syracuse, active around the basket. Jim Boeheim was very critical of Benny after the Lehigh game last week. He was great tonight. I mean, all things considered, 17 points, 8 rebounds. Joe Girard with 14 points. He was 4 of 15 overall. He was 4 of 12 from three-point range, hit a couple of free throws. And it was just one of those nights for Joe where he felt like he had to take over and take shots. He took the most amount of three-pointers on this team. Judah Mintz was 8 of 16, shooting 50%. So the freshman continues to deliver there, but defensively, man, I just don't even know how to describe this. I thought last year's defense was bad. So far, this is a defense that's got a lot of learning to do. It's got a lot of growing to do, and it made sense. We kept scratching our heads and wondering why would Syracuse play man-to-man defense? What was it about this team? Well, we're starting to find out here. They're playing man-to-man defense, as Doug notes here, bad spacing, bad hustling. They're long, they're athletic. You keep it simple on a younger team, right? Maybe learning the zone. Jim Boeheim says it's not that complicated, but for 6 new players, it certainly is. So it made sense because the combination of players you're going to have out there, you're just not going to get a zone that's in sync. Part of the zone is timing and everybody moving the right way back and forth and doing what they need to do. It's just easier to play man-to-man defense, no matter what defense Syracuse put out there. Colgate just owned them. And that's the thing here, guys. That's what I keep coming back to. This is not just Colgate sneaking in and pulling off an upset in back-to-back years because some kind of fluky thing. They were the better team. They had the better game plan. They had better players. They play better defense. They certainly shoot the ball a lot better. Colgate just looked organized. They knew exactly what they wanted to do and when they would do it, which I would anticipate from a veteran-laden team. But for Syracuse to just come out there and just, I don't even know how to describe it. And this is kind of what Jim Boeheim's offenses can delve into sometimes. There's a lot of iso ball and letting players create and finding mismatches out there. And maybe with some younger guys and some speed out there, you kind of have to let them do that. But we brought it up, 22 assists to 9 assists. There's no ball movement. There's no movement on defense. It's just, wow. And it's November 15th. At what rate can this team improve where they can actually be competitive against good teams? I mean, they're playing Northeastern on Saturday. They moved that game time to 4:00, by the way. And there are a couple of teams in the non-conference schedule that you would imagine Syracuse can handle. But Last year they lost to Colgate and then went to the battle for Atlantis and lost a couple of games there. Lost to Georgetown last year, a pitiful Georgetown team last year. Beat Syracuse. Got a lot of good teams. You got St. John's coming up on the Richmond coming up in the non-conference slate. Georgetown again. ACC games creep up a little closer in the December schedule. So it's not as tough on paper as last year. But wait, the way this team is playing, like, who can you take? You can't take anybody for granted. Not one team with how this young team has to figure it out here. So as Iris notes here, the more experienced Syracuse players have to play better. Blake says Matt Langle wouldn't be a bad choice for Syracuse's next coach. I'm surprised that Matt is still at Colgate, to be honest with you. I think he could have had a few jobs that were out there, maybe just, life situation, didn't want to just take any job. You take the right job. Yeah, it keeps playing his cards right. He can have this job at Syracuse at this point, right? Michelle noting that Joe Girard lost his handle a little too often. Jesse should be dominating. What's up with that? Colgate actually had two really good big men out there tonight. They mostly went with three-point shooting, and why wouldn't they? Because they kept getting open, and the shots were there. But yeah, Keegan Records and Jeff Woodward out there, and they did a really nice job on defense for Jesse Edwards. Let me go back to Jesse's numbers for a second here. Jesse had 10 points in this game, 7 rebounds in this game. He was 3 of 6, didn't get as many shots up, only got to the free throw line 6 times in this game. There's another thing. Let me make sure I'm right about this. Syracuse in this game, if I'm not mistaken, only committed 9 fouls. They only committed 9 personal fouls in this game, which showed you they just were so behind on Colgate's ball movement all night. They couldn't even catch up to guys to commit fouls at this point. So listen, Jesse's got to play better than that, but Colgate actually, they start 2 centers in their lineup. If you think of Colgate, you think of a bunch of guards, right? And certainly they hit a bunch of threes to reinforce that stereotype, but they actually have a couple of big men inside that did a nice job on Jesse Edwards. Blake says Tucker Richardson, best player on the floor tonight, and he was just wide open pretty much all night. They kind of got a hand up. They kind of got at him a little bit, but pretty much open from start to finish all night. Chris says Colgate's the better team, not in terms of talent, but in actually playing together. Yeah, let's stress the word team there, Chris. Team. They play team ball. And I'm not expecting Syracuse to come out in game 2 and look like a well-oiled machine. This thing was going to take time to put together. Everybody knows that, but to just look lost and to not, that doesn't excuse lack of hustle. It doesn't lack, just playing as hard as it can defensively. There's still players on this team that don't. They need a charge from Boeheim. They need a charge from the crowd. They need something to light a fire under their butt on defense. Look at Colgate. They're moving on defense. They're moving the ball on offense. And a lot of that's just want to. A lot of that's just hustle, right? It's not about coaching or learning this, that, or the other thing. It's playing the game, right? It's just playing the game. Bay says time to go man-to-man. They did. They did. They went man-to-man. They went 1-3-1. They went 2-3. But I guess if you're, I don't know, how can I put this? You're robbing Peter to pay Paul in a way, but what's the defense you can play that's going to put you in the best position and cause the least amount of damage right now? It's probably man-to-man, right? Because at least man-to-man, there's number 12, go guard him, go after him, right? And the thing is with Colgate, Colgate is used to man-to-man defense, right? For Syracuse to come out man-to-man defense, it's not like Colgate's going to go, oh, the zone is supposed to be an advantage for you because it makes teams think they got to take way too many threes. It messes with your head. It leads to turnovers the other way. It ideally leads to rebounds for you. None of that happens. I mean, Syracuse only got out rebounded by 1, but, I think the numbers certainly misrepresent there. Colgate just got all the right rebounds. And by the time Syracuse caught up in that department, it really didn't matter. We mentioned Benny Williams was good around the hoop. This team does not have a small forward right now. I mean, when you don't have one entire position out there contributing, I mean, in the first half of this game, as Donna Datota notes here, I saved this note, Chris Bell, Kadir Copeland, and Justin Taylor combined for no points, no rebounds, and 1 assist. They're all young. They're all new, but someone has got to contribute. Of those 3, Taylor is long He can hit threes. This team needs another 3-point shooter, by the way. I mean, at the very least, last year, you kind of knew you were sitting on a powder keg with Buddy Boeheim and Cole Swider and Gerard and Jimmy Boeheim that could just go off and hit some threes. This team doesn't even have that. So what kind of offense can they play? We know they can't play defense. Like, we're kind of running out of options for this team at this point. Mike says that man-to-man is effort. The zone is lazy. Actually, when you're in your best zone, it's effort. It's movement. It's being sharp at this point, right? All right, guys, I see a couple people kind of going at each other in here. I know you guys are upset about the game, but if you're just going to name call people and be immature, I'm just going to boot you out of here. All right, so everybody kind of, let's lay off the name calling. All right, express your frustrations about the team, not with each other, or I'm just going to kick you out. I mean, that's your one and only warning, guys. I'm not going to tolerate that. A couple more from you guys here. James says Syracuse players celebrating ankle-breaking moves, but getting blown out. That shows mentality and highlights, not winning. I mean, Judah Mintz had a really sweet, one of the few highlights in this game. He had a pretty sweet kind of dribble fake, shook his man off, had a shot at the top of the three open. Judah showed he can hit some threes. I'm not going to count on him consistently to hit some threes. I think his game is much more drive to the basket, drive past his guy, use his speed. But, I mean, they'll take it if this team can hit threes. Jim Boeheim had a long conversation with Symir Torrance at one point about it. You could tell it was about his shot selection. The Symir's offense was a little better. He said a couple threes through exhibition play in the first couple of games so far that count this year for Syracuse, but that's not a guy you can count on to hit threes, right? So Justin Taylor's the most likely candidate there, or Kadir Copeland. I like what I saw from Copeland in exhibition play, and he's just kind of getting used to real college ball here, but someone that can hit threes and play defense. That's who's going to win the job at the small forward position. And, maybe Chris Bell's just, not into it. Formerly Chris Bunch changed his name to Chris Bell for the few of you that haven't heard that. They're all freshmen. They're all young players. I wasn't expecting them to come out of the box ready to go, but you need something from that position. You can't have one entire position out of 5 that's just sitting there doing nothing in this game, right? Jim says Gerard looks slow, undecided shooting in this one, a little slow on defense, I'd say too. Ben says different topic. Any chance Melo Sun comes to Syracuse? For those of you that didn't see it over the weekend, Carmelo Anthony at the football game, Syracuse lost 38-3 to Florida State. So we're kind of in the worst of times with Syracuse's 2 lead programs, football and basketball at this point. I say there's a strong chance that they can land Carmelo Anthony's son, who's a 4-star prospect. I haven't seen a ton of him play, honestly, but everything I've seen and heard looks pretty good. Could lead that class of 2024 upcoming for Syracuse. And Jim mentioned it at one of his previous press conferences. They're not even focused on the class of 2023 because they have a lot of young guys. The class of 2024 is what they're focusing on here. I mean, to think about 2 years from now with kind of a siren emoji on each side of the ledger here going on with this program. I don't want to be thinking about 2024. I want to be thinking about Northeastern on Saturday, whether this team can beat that team. One would think they can, but good gracious. What we saw tonight was pretty sobering. And see, this is it. It's a familiar feeling. This is not like a stunning. I remember when Syracuse lost on a 3-quarter court shot to Cleveland State, and you're just like, what do you do? That's basketball. Weird, fluky things happen. It's the second year in a row that a team you used to pay for an automatic win came in and owned you and looked like the better team, looked like the better passing team, defense, discipline, shooting, you name it. You name it, go down the list. What wasn't Colgate better at out there tonight? And you're telling me this team's going to go through the rigors of ACC play this year? You're telling me this team can be on the same court with North Carolina and some of the better teams on this schedule? I mean, it's early and they'll get better, certainly. Nobody's pushing any panic buttons here, but man, to lose to Colgate like that for the second year in a row. I mean, panic button, you're at least looking over there like, you see that thing over there? I'm going to go push that if you don't stop me. Right? Adam says this team doesn't show any joy, and that comes from the top down. Is Boeheim enjoying this? Mike says, what's Wild Hack's legacy? A great soccer team. Hey, shout out to Ian McIntyre and that soccer team, ACC champions this year. See, Syracuse is a football school after all, right? But usually when the football team struggles, and here they are in a 4-game losing streak, what do you say? Well, is it basketball season yet? It is. And 2 games in, people are really, really concerned about what they're seeing. So, look, this feels like it's going to be a long year. I think we knew that. I think, we discussed that a couple of times, like have patience with this team, have patience with certain things in the sense of there's 6 freshmen and a transfer that have to contribute. In addition to 4 veteran players, things have to come together. Nobody puts a cake in the oven and it's done in 10 minutes. I think we all knew that and understood that. But man, this is going to be tough to stomach if they're going to look like this. I don't think they're going to look like this game after game. At least Colgate has a plan, knows what they're doing. They're veteran coach, veteran players. And Colgate walks into the Dome tonight not thinking they can beat Syracuse. They know they can beat Syracuse because a lot of these players did it last year. Here's the thing too, guys. So last year, Colgate hits 18 threes. They had 19 tonight. The 2 players that came in last year and tore up Syracuse. Give me a second to find it here. 2 players came in last year. And here they are. So you had Nelly Cummings and Jack Ferguson. Last year, 12 of 26 on threes. They had 9 assists and 0 turnovers. Those 2 are gone. They scored 40. They essentially scored half of Colgate's 100 points last year. They're gone. And it's just plug and play the next guys. We mentioned Tucker Richardson, who was back. He's their leading guy, left open all night. Now, Tucker hit a few from the parking lot, don't get me wrong, but it's a little easier for him to do that when it's just kind of a fleeting hand coming in his face. So, again, credit to Colgate. I can't give Matt Langle enough credit for what he's done there, but they lose their 2 best guys from last year and come in, and it's like nothing changed at all. They hit more threes in this game, as a matter of fact. That is absolutely incredible to think about. Blake says, is Boeheim softened with the freshmen? I mean, there's a couple of freshmen he's got to treat a little better than others because he's got 6 of them, right? Judah Mintz in particular. Judah Mintz is doing his job so far. I mean, he's got to learn some defense, but I think we expected that with a young guy. But he had 20 points in this game, kicked it into gear in the second half. I don't have a lot of complaints with Judah Mintz at this point. I think he's doing exactly what they're asking him to do at this point. James says you got to worry about young kids if they're beaten down early and often. It can hinder development. Let's see. Mike says recruits see an old coach yelling at kids on TV. Richard says man-to-man D will help. Changing defenses will create more confusion for our opponents. I mean, they did that tonight, right? They mixed in every defense they could possibly mix in, right? And none of it worked. None of it worked at this point. Bay says we should have never left the Big East. I don't know about that, but trust me, I pine for the old days of the Big East sometimes, but you can't leave all that TV money behind. I've heard that song and dance before, and it's 2022, folks. You know, you got to go where that sweet TV money is, media rights money is. There's no football in the Big East. Insert your jokes about how the football team is playing right now, but yeah, should have never left the Big East. In theory, I get what you're saying, but that doesn't make sense economically and kind of where we're at in the world of college athletics these days. Oh, Anthony, we hate to hear that, my friend. Good thing I couldn't watch it. I'm already in a hospital bed at Upstate. Well, Anthony, we hope you're feeling better. We hope everything's going okay. And hate to hear that you're in the hospital, my friend, but we're glad that we could keep you entertained a little bit here. Take your mind off things, we hope. So everybody give Anthony a shout out. Hope you're feeling better. Hope everything's going okay. Hope you get out of the hospital soon, my friend. Not good to hear that. Richard said it's going to take time. Don't sweat it right now. I mean, that's a good positive attitude to have, but I don't know, man. Colgate owns you for the second year in a row. Everybody's got to take a deep, deep breath. Could be a long, long winter. It's appropriate that here in Syracuse, there is enough snow that has stuck to the ground, couple of inches on the ground. Our friends in Western New York are about to measure snow in feet. 4, 5, 6 feet of snow is going to fall between Wednesday and Sunday, right before the Bills-Browns game in Buffalo on Wednesday. That should be interesting, right? So it felt appropriate tonight to be talking basketball. We're in the basketball mode. and it's snowing outside, right? It's just appropriate, right? I got the snow shovels out of the garage. I dug out a sweater today. It was cold enough, and I'm like, okay, this feels right. It's a Syracuse basketball game night, right? But man, how long and cold could this winter be if this team can improve and be competitive in some of these games? So I think that's what we're ended for tonight. Didn't expect to be here, but certainly in a strange way, happy to do it, to give you guys a forum to come on here and vent and do the thing. So I know we will not be here after the basketball game Saturday because I am on football duty on Saturday. So our next post-game show will be after Syracuse-Wake Forest Saturday night. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff Eastern time. So be on the lookout for that. Orange Weekly airs on these same channels Thursdays at noon Eastern time. So we'll be back on Thursday to talk about more of the aftermath of this, look towards the football game and kind of the State of the Union we do every Thursday on Orange Weekly. So look for that. If you miss post-game show, if you miss Orange Weekly, if you miss any of this, it automatically archives on the channel you're watching right now. I embedded in my recap on syracuse.com. We fire it off on our social media channels. So easy to catch up and watch the post-game shows or Orange Weekly if you do miss them streaming live. All right, friends, great to have you here. Look at this. Look at Robert. He's in St. Pete. We got Michelle, who's cold in L.A., right? Everybody in these warm locales. I live in Syracuse. It snows here. We'll do it. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming by. We'll be with you again Thursday for Orange Weekly at noon, and then Saturday after Syracuse-Wake Forest. For the love of God, don't lose to Northeastern and make me have to do another emergency show after that basketball game. I'll do it. I'll find a way to do it. I don't know how. I'm going to be on football duty, but I will find a way to do it if they lose that game because, by God, just don't do that. All right? We'll see you next time, everybody. Thanks for watching. This has been Syracuse Basketball Postgame presented by Krause Health.